Obviously, lots of discussion about where Marcus Rashford goes next, having been left out since the trip to Victoria Pilsen in December. He missed the Manchester derby and he's missed every game since. He was on the bench again at Monday night, I think it was, against Newcastle, but didn't get called upon even when they were 2 goals down. He has angrily hit out at claims that he's held talks with another football agency to try and get them to represent him in a January move. Now, he recently came out and did an interview with our very own Henry Winter, in which he said, I am ready for a new challenge, and he thinks it is maybe time for him to move on. He hasn't played in the last 5 matches. Head coach Ruben Amorim has left him out of the matchday squad for 4 of those, but he has denied being in talks with the CAA Stella agency over switching his representation to work with intermediaries who also helped negotiate Bale's transfer to Real Madrid, Grealish's transfer to Manchester City. He has been represented by his brother Dwayne Maynard during his career, but there was a lot of talk suggesting that he's enlisted the help of another agency. He said these stories are getting ridiculous now. A lot of false stories written over the past few weeks. Never met with any agency and don't have any plans to do so. Right, okay, clear it up. Well, because you talked about this story as well. You think he's employed the services of another agency group, don't you?
I think he's employed the services of several, including Stella, to try and negotiate a move away. You mentioned that he's been represented by his brother, and I think if there is any move, then whoever does the deal, Dwayne Maynard is going to certainly want to be a big part of that. But Stella, they're the same agency that negotiated Gareth Bale's big money transfer to Real Madrid. They are one of the biggest agencies in the country. So while Rashford himself may not have spoken as Stella, I've had it on good authority that certainly people acting on his behalf have had those conversations.
So let's just clear that up, right? Because he is never going to be involved in these negotiations. No. This isn't going to happen. He's not going to get a phone call saying, they're going to pay you this much a week, or do you fancy going here, blah, blah, blah. They won't come to him until everything's sorted and they present him with an option. That's how it works.
And it's not unusual for, agents who don't necessarily represent that player to get involved as intermediaries. That happens a lot in deals, more than you think, actually.
Yeah, because and people insert themselves into deals. That's another thing. People say, I can get you this move, blah, blah, blah. And then they work with the other agent in order to make things happen. And sometimes there's an agent that represents the club and one that represents the player too. So, look, I think there's... Well, I don't know. You tell me. You've been pretty clear that there is other people involved in this now. But I think what it has shown is that there's an escalation in him trying to move.
Yeah, well, I think he pretty much escalated that himself with the interview that he gave to Henry Winter. I wonder if he partly regrets that now, because certainly it's strengthened Ruben Amorim's resolve. I think not to pick him, it was very telling that even when they were toiling against Newcastle and looking for a goal, he went to other subs and left Rashford sat on the bench. It's very difficult to see a future for him at Manchester United, certainly under this manager. But it's equally difficult to see where he goes, because I'm told he's not particularly keen on Saudi Arabia. You mentioned last week, and actually Ben Jacobs just reiterated to me with regards to Casemiro that most of the quotas over there are full. But they've got their overseas players. So, that's one avenue that's shut down. I'm not sure there'll be many Premier League clubs queuing up to take Marcus Rashford. I do know that Stella have a close relationship with Tottenham. So maybe that could be one to keep an eye on. I don't see him going to Arsenal. He's just not a Mikel Arteta type personality. Spain, I think, would appeal to him, but we know all about the financial crisis that Barcelona are in. Is he going to go to Real Madrid? Not realistically. Atletico Madrid have been mentioned to me, but again, I just can't see Simeone and Rashford as a marriage made in heaven. So it's a really difficult situation for all concerned. And I think actually by coming out and giving that interview to Henry Winter, Rashford hasn't helped Manchester United in terms of the negotiating position.
Well, so therefore, the fact that he is now coming out and saying that this is getting ridiculous, there's a lot of false stories written over the last few weeks,
He's trying to control the narrative, isn't he?
Is he? Or is he trying to backtrack a little bit here? Because if there's no takers and Manchester United can't sell him, he's going to be in the squad.
And I guess the question...
Or he's going to be paid by Manchester United for the next 2.5-3 years.
Yeah, and if they keep losing, does there come a time when Ruben Amorim has to swallow his pride and maybe go back to Rashford?
And do a Harry Maguire.
Yeah. I was surprised he didn't get on against Newcastle. My initial view was if you're going to pick him in the squad and you're getting turned over... I think he
loses a lot of authority. It's like if he changes from 3-4-3 now, he loses a lot of authority. I mean, the way he's set up, the way he's gone in, all guns blazing, this is what I've got to do. It's going to take a long time. Just get on with it. There's going to be casualties. And Marcus might end up finding himself one of those because, there's been players that have missed a lot of football at Manchester United before. Jadon Sancho nearly missed a whole year of football before he came back into the fold and then had to be moved on eventually. And I think, Marcus Rashford's in a very difficult situation here. He's in the peak of his career, or should be in the peak of his career.
Age-wise.
And he's going to end up missing a hell of a lot of football unless there is either a peace brokered or he can get a move. But it's very difficult to get a move when you earn $375,000 a week. There's only very few clubs that can afford that in the first place. Manchester United are going to want to take a massive hit because of PSR problems that they've already got. So I think he's sort of almost talked himself into a corner. He would have been better off, instead of giving that interview and saying he wants to leave, giving an interview saying he's going to do everything he can to get back to where he was, and then trying to do that. That would have been a much better option for him, because he would have had the fans on the side, he would have had Amorim on side, and he would have been giving himself an avenue to flourish. And if at the end of the season then he does brilliantly, then maybe they could have flogged him.
But it's not the first PR faux pas that Marcus has made, is it? I remember that interview that he gave for the Players Tribune to try and get the Manchester United fans on side. It had the opposite effect for quite a lot of them. And actually there were videos on social media of him being booed on his way into Old Trafford the other night, which is not great. Having come through the academy, he's a Manchester United fan, he should be the poster boy. I mean, this is a mess, really, and it's a mess that I think undermined Erik ten Hag, because he actually did the opposite to Amorim and kept trying to pick Marcus Rashford.
It can't be allowed to undermine Amorim.
No.
They've got to stick with him.
I think they will.
But they've got to stick with him and his whatever he decides on it. They've got to allow him to make that decision, I think.
Yeah.
I think it's more a club decision, don't you?
I don't think it's solely on the manager. I think we look at the cutbacks that Ineos are making. I think Sir Jim Ratcliffe has looked at Rashford and thought, you know what, he's just not worth the money that we're paying him. If we can get a transfer fee, if we can get him off the wage bill, it will help with our own PSR. Maybe a passing of the ways is best for all concerned. It's very early in the window, but at the moment I think it's difficult to see Marcus Rashford going unless they do a sort of Raheem Sterling type deal where they're still paying 90% of his wages. But I'm not sure there's huge benefit in that for Manchester United, other than just getting him out of the dressing room.
And that might actually be a benefit. Talking of PR disasters and PR pluses, certainly Amad Diallo has struck the right note on X. He took to the social media network yesterday to say, a very difficult year. Apologising is not enough, but you have supported us and continue to do so throughout this time. So thank you very much. I mean, it's interesting that it's Amad Diallo who comes out and sets the tone. 22 years of age. He's only really been involved in the first team for 2 years. And most of last year was in and out of the side. I'm still struggling to work out why Erik ten Hag didn't use him more than he did, especially at the beginning of this season. But anyway, the fact that he is the one who has to address it says something, doesn't it, about his character and about, the lack of leadership?
Yeah, I'm not a massive fan of players coming out on social media and apologising, because you have to question, did he write that himself? Has he got a PR company behind him?
Cynical.
I hammer David De Gea because he used to come out after every defeat and do it, so I can't be a hypocrite. And
wouldn't you love to have him back now?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's been another disastrous idea to replace him with Onana. But listen, Amad is a good guy. He's a humble guy. I've met him on a couple of occasions. I think he's been one of the rare bright spots for Manchester United this season. But it shouldn't be upon a 22-year-old to be the one who has to come out and apologise. Where are the leaders in that dressing room? That's a massive issue, I think, for Ruben Amorim. From what I'm told, Lisandro Martinez is one of the more vocal characters, but he's been dreadful in recent weeks, not least against Newcastle the other night.
Also, there is a possibility of more financial toil. United could lose their £900 million Adidas kit deal. It will be terminated by the German sportswear giant if the club are relegated from the Premier League. They're not going to get relegated.
They're not going to go down, are they?
Somebody
said to me yesterday they'd have to play the under-18s for the rest of the season to get relegated.
The under-18s probably won't get relegated. I'm going to be honest. They might be better. 33-1, I think it was yesterday. I think it's 28-1 now.
It was 50 going into that Newcastle game.
Get this right. It was 1,000,000 at the beginning of the season that there would be a Manchester derby in the Championship next season. But with all the PSR stuff and with the breaches and potential breaches, the 115 charges, etc., which haven't been proven yet, it's now down to 242-1.
Wow.
From $1 million to
You'd be
1.
quite happy if you were sat on $1 million to 1 ticket.
I mean, that's a cash out, isn't it?
It's big time. But I mean, there should be too much quality in that Manchester United squad to be abroad in a relegation battle, and there are too many bad teams below them. But
like not getting into the Champions League or not getting to Europe would certainly affect the Adidas contract. They could reduce payments if they don't end up fulfilling certain criteria. So that 900 million quid is only 900 million quid over the course of, I think is it 20 years or 10 years or 10-year agreement, if certain criteria are met. And Manchester United need income. They need to make sure that the tills are rolling over, and Adidas obviously, and their income that they provide is a big part of that.
Well, it's interesting, and I know you highlighted this before Christmas, but once again, there's a big half-price sale in the club shop. I got an email about it this morning.
Christmas Eve, 50% off.
Well,
kits.
And that shows you, I know I've given Jim Ratcliffe a bit of stick for the cuts that he's making off the pitch, but there are clearly big financial concerns in terms of PSR. That's why they're trying to get some big earners off the wage bill this month. I don't see a big influx of players coming to United because I just don't think they've got the budget to do it. But obviously not qualifying for the Champions League does hit them financially. They protected themselves slightly because all the players and the manager had to take a pay cut when they missed out last season on a place in the Champions League. And they are still in the Europa League. They should qualify automatically into round of 16. And of course they win that competition. That does give them Champions League football, but at the moment
save everything, wouldn't it?
Well, yeah, but at the moment it's very hard to see them winning it, even though I've got to say the quality in that competition, particularly with Champions League teams not dropping into it as they usually do at the halfway stage, they should be there or thereabouts, really, but maybe I'm going on name only rather than current form.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.